Kia ora, no mai, haere mai ki Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod this week. We've got plenty to talk about as ever because we've got the Bledisloe Cup coming up, plenty of NPC and FPC final, all sorts of things to talk about. James Parsons in the studio with me, Ross Karl, and down in Japan, Japan's up. It's up from here, isn't it? Up in Japan, Bryn Hall. How are you doing, Bryn?
No, good, mate. Just got back from a nice pre-season game in Kamaishi. It was a awesome opportunity to be able to play my first game, and so got the win. And it was about a 6-hour travel both ways. So, but it was great to be able to put the blue jersey on for the first time and get a win and do some goal kicking as well.
Goal kicking.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. I saw that on your Instagram, and I was like, "Is this is a thing? I hadn't seen that before." But apparently, you are a well-educated boot.
Yeah, just needed an opportunity, really, Ross. To be honest, but I think our original kicker was on the bench, and Sam Green, our other first five, wasn't playing. So, did some goal kicking on the Thursday to prove to my coach that I could actually goal kick. He didn't know that I could goal kick, so but had 4 from 6, but 4 of them were in front, and I missed 2 from the sideline. So,
maybe
don't know if I'll be getting the job next week.
Maybe that's what I should have done to you back when you debuted for Harbour. Hey, honestly, I was captain and we were about 40 out on the angle, so about 45 metres. The old mate came up to me and said, "I got this." I said, "All right, yep, we'll go for the 3. And I was just like, holy dooly. And then in the review, coach had a crack at me for going to the corner, and I was like, old mate said he could get it. And then he goes, "No, I didn't." And the reviewer just chucked me under the bus, mate. If looks could kill, holy dooly.
Mate, I'm glad you brought that up, Joe, because, geez, mate, if there was ever a death stare, would get an introduction to the death stare from James Parsons. I just threw my captain under the bus. So.
Oh, mate.
Yeah, mate, it was.
Took me a few days to just talk to him again. Oh.
You're still talking now, though.
I know. Well, the problem is we both talk too much. That's half our battle.
On a more sombre note, this week we've lost a legend at Sky Sport, and in fact in North Harbour, where both of you guys played your footy, Willie Losay, only 55 years old, passed away this week. I worked a lot with him in my early career at Radio Sport. Thoroughly missed. What a character.
Oh, huge personality, and I had a lot to do with him, especially when I was moving into commentating. And I think the one thing you love about Willie is he just would always gift you his time. After a lot of the games I'd commentate, he'd send me messages, advice. He certainly will be sorely missed, and brought a smile to everyone's face wherever he went. So certainly tragic news. Speaking within the Harbour rugby community, it's definitely hit a lot of people.
Yeah, he was one of those blokes who could walk into a room and just have a chat with anyone and just
100%
get into it. Great tourist.
Huge, fantastic tourist.
Enjoyed a bar. We both started at the same time. I was like 20 years old and I was one of the young producers, and Willie was trying to make his way into talkback radio and then, through his broadcasting career. And so he drew the short straw on a Saturday night, and his first gig was on a Saturday night, and I was his producer. And so I was getting paid, heaven knows what I was getting paid back then. You couldn't buy lunch, put it that way. And the deal that Willie had was that Willie had to sell the advertising on his show. So they said, we'll give you a trial run. You can have this Saturday night show. We're not going to pay you, but you can sell any advertising you like within that spot and pay yourself. So Willie, being the guy he was, he'd go out and meet a couple of people, sell some advertising. Next thing you know, the show is chock-a-block full of people who were calling up and getting on to sell whatever it was that they were going to sell. We got to the end of the season, and you talked about generosity of his time, generosity of his money too. We got to the end of the season, and he walks into the little booth, the production booth, with a wad of cash in his hands, and he goes to me, "This is your cut," and lays it down on the table. And I was like,
it is,
mate, I'm being paid. I'm being paid. And he's like, this is your cut.
It epitomises the man, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He's full of integrity.
Yeah.
And also wants to reward hard work.
Totally. I don't know how hard I was working, but I was definitely there every night.
It was Saturday night and you're a young man. No, actually, you're working hard.
Saturday night talkback is hard work. the game finishes, everyone turns off their tally, and the same 3 people would call you up.
Fired up, no doubt.
Yeah, and if the game hadn't, if a team had won, no one cared. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
If the All Blacks had won, the Lions are clear and no one wants to talk. If the All Blacks have lost, we're there till
Lockout.
2 a.m.
Yeah.
and Willie's fired up like, can we do another hour? I went, no, we're closing at midnight. We're already at 12:30, mate.
It's so good. So good.
Yeah, he's good. Very good man. So to Willie and your family, obviously, we miss him a lot and we appreciate it. And our thoughts are with you. So yeah, let's move on to the test match this week. We've got a Bledisloe Cup test on a Thursday. You know, never mind quiet Saturday night talk back on a Thursday night.
Well, the reason they did it hasn't quite eventuated because the Storm have bundled out of the NRL, so they won't be a threat. And I think the Swans are hosting Collingwood in Sydney. So they originally did it to not go up against, the final series of the NRL and AFL, which is a smart decision, to be fair. But there's none of that on this weekend, so hopefully all the crowd are fired up to get along to the game on Thursday night.
Massive weekend with the AFL on. Great place to be if you're an All Black looking to go under the radar and get ready for a test match.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the Thursday, I've spoken to a lot of people, today and previous days going, you're looking forward to the test match this weekend. And I was like, it's Thursday. So they would have been able to go right under the radar in terms of, how long they've been over there and preparing for this test. So I think everyone's looking forward to it. Both oppositions have had an up and down season, so it'll be definitely exciting at Melbourne with a full house, hopefully.
Bryn, considering they didn't play on the weekend, how does playing on a Thursday affect the way that they prepare? Will it be much different?
No, I don't think so. I think, you pretty much just, I guess, get your preparation and treat it like a Saturday game, but you're playing on a Thursday. So they would have travelled a little bit earlier. And to be honest, it ends up just being pretty much a normal week. So I think the good thing about it is, like Jip alluded to, is that, they've gone under the radar, thinking that the AFL and the NRL was going to be on the weekend. But, they've been able to go under the radar the first couple of days. And then now, knowing that the test match isn't that too far away, they'll be able to go and explode on the Thursday night. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's great to be able to not wait till the Saturday. I think being able to watch it on Thursday and got a bit of a Mitre 10 Cup feel, Bunnings NPC feel, but knowing that it's a test match, it comes a little bit earlier. And I guess for people to watch it, I'm really excited to watch it on a Thursday night and not have to wait till Saturday.
My understanding is their day one will be Saturday. They work in days. They don't quite as in day 1, 2, 3, and it'll just be replicated. It won't be like, it's Saturday, so it's different. It's just that mindset shift of, okay, the game's Thursday. We work back from that, what we need to tick off, and I think they would have got over there a little bit earlier, so maybe a few light sessions to acclimatise to the conditions, but they would have ramped things up in the weekend.
So Thursday is day 6. I mean, yeah.
7.
Day 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's normally a 7-day period back, so
and
obviously day 3 today, so they probably would have had a day off.
Yeah.
Yesterday, day off. So day 4 today would have been their big training day, and then captain's run day. Where am I? Day 5. Yeah, and then day 6. Yeah.
And so you reset normally on a Sunday, but this time it'll be a Friday.
Yeah. Pretty
Yes.
much.
That's day 1.
And then they might get because it's on the Saturday, they might get the weekend off, travel back, and then come back into camp Monday.
Yeah.
Or Sunday night.
Probably get that Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, which is actually quite nice.
Yeah.
Sometimes you play that Saturday, you have a Sunday, and then you're back in on day 1 on your Monday. But it'd be quite nice to probably play the Thursday, fly back and get a 3-day kind of rest recovery, and help probably actually a lot better as well, knowing that they've just come off a little break as well. So you'd think they'll be really refreshed coming into this Aussie test match, and then even after that having a three-day break. I know they'll take the best out of that and recover really well, and even be more fresh for the following week.
So the key changes to the team this week: no Savia, no Frizzell. So that 6-8 combination that's been there for the last couple of test matches gone. Barrett at 6, Satutu at 8. Do you like that as a combination with Sam Cane?
Yeah, well, I do. Obviously, I think Scott proved a lot of people wrong when he got his crack there at 6 and has had time covering there. And I think line-out will be important. So having 3 big bodies, actually 4 now. Hoskins is a real line-out threat. So it's definitely a nice make-up, and then plenty of impact to come off the bench to free them up late in the game.
One of the things that they've said about the All Blacks loose forward trio is maybe it lacks a little bit of balance with Savia, despite his obvious talents, being probably the best player in the country, being small for an international number 8. Now you've got the chance to play a slightly bigger bloke. Is this a good opportunity for New Zealand to look at a different kind of combination and see how that works, Bryn?
Oh, I think Artie is pound for pound pretty good, but I think what Hoskins does do, he's a great line-out option. And when if they're going to select Scott Barrett at 6, you've got Whitelock and Retallick. That's 4 genuine line-out options. So you think around the line-out defensive pressure that they can put on the Australians, and you'd like to think that that's where the All Blacks are going to try and put a lot of pressure on their set piece. But Hoskins, I think it's come at a great time for him. He's played 2 games at Bunnings NPC to get some game time. Probably not wanting to get the game time that he's had, but I think the athlete that we've talked about him a lot. His ability to be able to go off the scrum, being able to attack off that, his skill set, his distribution, even as he can kick as well as the number 8. So I think for him, it's come at a great time, and probably we wanted to see Hoskins a little bit earlier, but just due to the inconsistencies, the All Blacks haven't been able to change in their selection process. But look, I think it's come at a great time for Hoskins, and hopefully he can get a good performance out there. And knowing that we need to build depth, if Ardie Savea goes down, Hoskins is selected as an out-and-out number 8. It's probably come at a good time for him to try and unleash the shackles and have a good performance against the Aussies.
And I think it's key against the Aussies. If you look at all the games they've lost, one of the big areas that failed them was the line-out, and they had opportunities to win Test matches, especially against England. And it was, not straights due to that pressure, or overthrows due to that pressure England were putting on. So having those 4 bodies and making sure that not all 4 of them try to jump all the time, it'll be key that they're on the same page and they'll have systems around that. But that's a big factor. And also, I think, not to focus too hard on set piece, but what Hoskins can do, we've started to see the All Black scrum edge that dominance, but what he can do is change the picture with a quick hook and go, and he can take off 30 metres like that. He's got the skill set to link up with the backs. So I think that's an exciting aspect, because the Australian flankers are going to have to stay on, and if he can pull one out of the hat and get away, then they're going to be more thinking about him, and that's when the All Blacks can go for the kill with the scrum and march and milk some penalties, and then you're starting to get some real dominance and ascendancy in the Test match that allows you to sort of piggyback your way up the field.
That's an interesting talking point, because last time we saw a Test match at this venue under the roof in Melbourne, the grass cut up. It was sandy underneath, and every scrum went down just because the grass was moving under their feet. So knowing that, having a person like Hoskins Sotutu becomes very valuable.
Massive. And it's not to say that Ardie can't do it, but it is something that it's a hell of a skill that Hoskins has, to just scoop a ball up with one hand and go. Like, it was freakish when I played with him, like how hard we hook back. Like, it flies back there and he's just gone and out of the gates. And he did it against, I think when he started against Argentina, when it was his rugby championship over in Oz. So he's done it at international level, and I just think it's a real weapon, and it catches defenders off guard. You know what it's like, Bryn. It is quite a challenge for halfbacks, because if you lose that connection, or you beat them off the scrum, it's hard for you to cover both sides.
Yeah, it's seriously your worst nightmare when there's kind of 15, 16 metre blind, and you've just got the winger on the blind side and you've got the 9. I've done it a lot with Ardie Savea. You guys have seen that a lot. But it's really hard to be able to defend. And so what that does do, if you've got the ability to do that, you're going to send another person over. You look at the example when David Havili puts Rico into that short ball option, even though they had a man down. The ability that a number 8 at the back of the scrum, how you can manipulate a defensive system, is putting another guy over, just because you're so scared of the quick hook, like Jip said. It's so hard to stop. So he's got the skill set for that, and I know the amount of preview we had to do for Hoskins, Ardie, and those boys that can play at a number 8 that have got a great skill set to go for the quick hook. It puts you under so much defensive pressure. So I'd like to think that probably the Australians will be looking at Hosk and trying to see how we can try and stop that. I guess how we try to do that is you try and put a lot of pressure on him at the base. Because sometimes when it goes through that channel 1, Jip, you'll know that when it goes straight back to that between the lock's feet and the loose forward, the defensive pressure you can put on the number 8 as soon as they're taking the one hand off and the shoulders off, you can then go and attack the 8. So you'd like to think Nick White and those Wallabies halfbacks will try and put a lot of pressure on that kind of attacking pressure from the All Blacks.
So when the number 8 takes a shoulder and a hand off, then suddenly there's less pressure on the back of the scrum and they're searching for the ball. Is that what you're saying? Like, it's not just right in front of them?
It's pretty much like, because, the likes of Ardie and Hoskins that are great ball runners, with where the ball goes in the scrum, the hooker hooks it back, and it actually goes in between the lock, the left-hand side lock and the left-hand side flanker, and it sits in that kind of pocket area between the flanker and the number 8. So the number 8s tend to try and break off their shoulders to go and get the ball. Like if you look at Hoskins, sometimes he'll grab it with one hand, but the rule is if the number 8 shoulders are off and the shoulders are on, and then they go off to try and get the ball, the number 9 then can go for the ball and put pressure on. If you could probably show a vision, Ross, and the Crusaders Blues final, look at when I put pressure on Hoskins, because you can try and stop it at the source. The last thing you want is a quick hook, and then Hoskins or Artie, players like that, to get outside the 7 and go hard at that first channel, which is usually a number 10. So it's a hard defensive play to make a tackle really close to the line. So the amount of pressure you can put on the number 8s through that with halfbacks, it's really important to try and stunt that momentum of having a really good number 8 at the back of the scrum.
But one of the key things that you rely on there is your flankers to, create a pathway. So, Barrett and Kane are going to have to make sure that they, protect Hoskins a little bit to allow him to get off. So there are ways around it, but again, it's going back to, it's such a hard job for Lucy's these day and age, because you've got to be on. Everyone wants you on, going hard for the scrum, but then you've got to worry about, Nick White's very good at it. TJ Perenara's done it for a number of years. He's made it a nightmare for both. And if they have a bit of success, and as I was saying before, Hoskins, if he has success, then it means they might be able to go for a penalty. Well, if the 9s have a bit of success, they can really change that defensive picture by, Nick White could come up and then drop back just before, so that he joins that defensive line, and the pitch is straight away different for the All Blacks attack. So it's almost who gets the small wins there is quite crucial, but both can backfire as well. So it is a high risk play. But I think with Hoskins and his ability to scoop that ball up with one hand, it's probably more favoured towards the All Blacks.
You also got to watch out for getting slapped in the face these days.
We don't need to bring that back up.
It's an unusual tactic.
It is.
It's pressure all the same, even if it's like Hoskins.
But I think it's like what Bryn was saying, like all jokes aside, is if you can just get a bang on that arm and they bobble the ball, or it's an accidental offside penalty, like those are big plays.
Before the Island series, to say that the All Blacks front row week on week would be De Groot, Taukei'aho and Tyrell Lomax, you probably wouldn't have predicted that.
No, I definitely think Taukei'aho was, definitely in consideration. There was a lot of chat about him starting, but Cody got the nod there, and he was exceptional on the end of your tour. You always knew he was going to be knocking on that door for a start. The difference was when he got the start, how well he played, and now he's almost got the confidence. He just, it's hard to explain. Like there's some players that just play their best rugby at international footy, and he just looks so at home at that level, which is, it's outstanding for his growth and development. And I also, I do think his time, around his improvement in his line-out throwing has got to be a lot of credit with whoever runs the line-out, and you'd have to think that's Sam Whitelock, and that confidence he's given him to really throw at that pinnacle. De Groot, you had to think he was always going to be there or thereabouts, maybe not a regular starter, but with Moody's injury, and other guys having bigger workloads at international level. But he's made every post a winner as well. And Lomax is probably the biggest outlier, isn't it? He missed selection. He wasn't in the mix for the 23, let alone the starting. Then a couple of injuries, opportunity again. As we were saying before, with the Lucies, it's not a development team, and if you take your opportunity, your only currency is your performance, and they just keep performing, they'll keep getting picked.
So, Bryn, if you were to have Ofa Tu'ungafasi come back, if you were to have Joe Moody come back, would they just stick with the same team because it's working?
I think for the meantime, just with how inexperienced they are and how they've been with the likes of De Groot and Lomax, just being able to continue to keep playing them, especially if they're experienced, you could think workload and being able to maybe have changes here and there. But I think with how they're going and the inexperience that they do have, just keep them on there, keep them playing a good rich run of form. kept them playing well and getting that confidence. And then even, the likes of George Bauer and Fletcher Newell, who wasn't even in the environment as well, very similar to Lomax, has taken his opportunity, and they're doing some great roles off the bench. And the likes of Jason Ryan, and very similar to the Crusaders, been able to play 50 to 30 minutes, that popping duo. So no, for me, I'd keep them in there, keep them while the form's hot, and then if there's injuries in that, then you've got the likes of Nepo and Ufa who are proven, what you can get with them. But I think with how successful they're going, especially Takiaho, man, he's like you said, man, you'd have to put him in the class of being one of the best hookers in the world.
Yeah.
And so it's happened very, very quickly. So his improvement has just been great. And he's the difference I feel in our attack at the moment, Jip. They've got him in the middle of the field, doing the hard carries with him and Adi Severe. Every single time he's just getting over the advantage line, which I think is the difference as well as a set-piece line-out work as well.
Massively, and I think it's key to identify that, because I think a whole generation of hookers were changed, when Colsey came in and he stayed on those wide channels and really had that top-end speed, and we saw pretty much a lot of world rugby go that way. It's almost like come full circle, and the blokes like Marks and Takiaho, and Whainga, almost used in the middle as battering rams, because they're just so big, strong, and they get that low body position, get across the game line. It's almost like the next generation of hooker are going to be looking to be at that 115, 116, not that 108 to 110 mark, and being an extra loose forward on the width. Don't get me wrong, he's still as effective at the breakdown at getting turnovers, but there's been a complete shift in that hooking role, and he is... His game is suited to that middle of the field, tough carries. You watch him, when he carries, he just pops back up and he gets straight back in and the hands back up. He's like, I'm ready to go again. His fitness must be so up there at the moment. His work ethic, both sides of the ball, attack and defence, is exceptional at the moment.
And has that been caused by the defensive structures that's meant that you needed players like that in tighter rather than out wide?
I think so, because it's quite hard to get to that width, and it's almost like these days at international rugby, you have to, the old cliche, you've got to win, up front before you can go to the width, because you haven't sucked in defence, you haven't manipulated it. And look, if teams don't front up through the middle, the All Blacks have shown they can get their tip passes going, they can find weak shoulders and get the offload game going, and or create quick ruck. They only need one clear and that ball's gone, and that's when you can get it to the width. And it's almost like, okay, this is the 8 we're picking, so where are they best suited? And at the moment, Takiaho is so well suited in that middle.
Just backing on what Jip said around his work ethic and being able to get set early on attack, like I think we played in the semi-final, I think he maybe had like 28 carries in the game, so, and I think it's just an amazing amount of fitness and work ethic. But then I think you're right. I think where the game's going and the kind of hooker role and the breakdown being so crucial, because it's so, like you said, Ross, it's so hard to be able to get to the edge if you don't win that middle breakdown, whether it be off the forwards, off Aaron Smith, or even around the corner off Richie or Bodie in that kind of zone. You've just got to be able to win the battle through the middle. And like Takiaho, his ability to be able to do that has been so good for the All Blacks. And I think that's the reason why sometimes we've been so successful being able to get lightning quick balls, because his ability to be able to win the advantage line, get over that gain line, and then being able to open up that 4th and 5th defender from that ruck due to his ball carry. So, like you said, I think the 8 that they've selected, and I guess the way that they're using the attributes of what they do really well.
So 28 carries, put that in perspective. Like, how many more than a normal amount for a hooker is that?
I think if you're going at your stats like I used Hoskins before, 13 and 13, that's probably quite high. That is NPC level, but it's also, in some teams, it's like, okay, you're a really good carrier and you're a really good cleaner. So if you can get yourself in those positions and you've got time to do it.
Yeah.
Because I might be a really good cleaner, so I might clean 40 or 50 rucks, and Samasoni cleans 5, but he has 28 carries and I have 1 carry. Do you know what I mean? So it is, sometimes in teams, it is like, we need to get you in that position. I know at the Blues, we worked really hard to get a guy like Pati Tuipulotu in the middle, so that, if there was a tough carry to be had, his body mass is going to be harder to stop than, say, mine. It's different for each team. It's not really a hooker specific, but that's high for anyone. That's higher. That's ridiculous. We talk about the amazing stats of Krema and Kane around 27, 28 tackles. Carries are, you're normally getting tackled by 2 blokes. It's a big job. Big job.
Chip, you think about it, right? 28 carries, but you've got a scrum as well.
And then
you've got a
throw.
scrum, and you've got to do line out mauls, and you've got to throw. So look,
It's
that just comes. But
ridiculous.
he just must have. He's got a massive engine to be able to do that. Obviously, hasn't done 28 carries internationally.
But I think he's done
you can see
between
his-
15 and 18, like the tests,
Yeah.
last 2 tests. Like, that's still ridiculous.
When you take into account the fact that he's a hooker, so more than likely he's only going to be playing 50 to 60 minutes, that makes it even crazier.
Yeah.
Like he's making a carry every couple of minutes.
And he pretty much is. If you watch the game, like he just pops back up in that carry position, and that's why I think maybe everyone around him knows that it's key to get him in that main carry spot, because he's still got the skill set to give the tip. He's got the skill set to go out the back. But if there's a wall of defenders and the backs don't want it, he's not. He doesn't care. He's going through you.
Put your head down.
Yeah, no, in his head, he's looking past you already. Like that's how he carries it. And he'll release the ball and he'll go again. And then you've got Artie who comes in for a quick pick, and straight away, then you've got an advantage because you've caught the defence offside, and then you're away. And that's when guys like Rico and Davey Havili and Co can shine.
It's good timing too. Like the All Blacks needed something like that a year out from the World Cup, and he's just timed his run perfectly.
But I also think the other two are vitally important as well in terms, I always reference this for the 2015 World Cup and the crucial role that Kevin Mialami played in allowing Dane Coles to be his very best and developing Cody Taylor as the next generation. So there's still a massive role to play, and when the game's in the balance, to bring on that experience in the last 20 minutes is just as crucial as winning the first 60.
And if you want a really rugged Thursday preparation, Dane Coles is your man.
Oh, yeah. He certainly, once he crosses any white line, it's on.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's game day or training day.
When we're on tour with the All Blacks, you were never allowed to watch training. Apart from on a Thursday, if the coach was in a good mood, you'd be invited to stay after whatever, you'd come in with your camera and you'd shoot your warm-up for 10, 15 minutes, get a couple of players doing bugger all, and then turn the cameras off. And on a Thursday on tour, they'd let you sit in and watch. And I always really, really enjoyed that because of two blokes, and it was Cody Taylor and Brodie Retallick, because they were just smashing people, no matter which side of the field they were on. They were just
Brodie
into it on a Thursday.
He's another level.
That's so good though for your group, that competitive edge. And you even talked about it previously, the Argentinian week. Brodie Retallick coming back into the fold and the kind of competitive edge that you bring to that environment. And so, I've heard, Strip, you've been up against Dane Coles, I don't know how many times, but every time you've talked about me with him, it's a hell of a ding-dong battle, and he's very very chippy as well. But, I think that's great for a group when you've got guys like that can put you on edge and being able to, do things that are 50-50 thinking on the good side and the bad side of the law. But sometimes you need that in a test week, and when you're under pressure, guys being able to bring that, being able to put that in the squad, because it's pretty invaluable sometimes when you're in a bit of a rut. And so I'd like to think that'll continue with Colesy and Brodie being there for sure.
Colesy.
He's one of the greats.
Other thing you got to do is put your ref ears in. Those little things that you can get when you listen to the referee's feed when you're in the stand.
Yeah.
And if Dane Coles is captain of the Hurricanes, you hear more of him than you do the ref. And some of the language, you're sitting there wondering whether or not it's going to be on TV. You're like, I hope he's not near the ref right now. Because if that's on television.
I think that's just all hookers that are captains talk far too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the other thing in the All Blacks squad that's obviously changed this year outside of the front row, and this week we've got the loose forward mix, Richie Mo'unga has come in and taken ownership of the jersey in the last few weeks, the 10 jersey that is, over Beauden Barrett. Is this it now, do you think? This is his jersey to lose?
I hate to say it though, again, but your only currency is performance, and I don't see why they'd change it when things are starting to, and we talk about that cohesion factor. Things are starting to heat up, guys are starting to get really comfortable and confident. And it's not just what Richie does as an individual performance, it's what he allows Davey Havili to do, which brings the best out of Rico. So I'd say they stick with it. But, as long as there's still W's, if you went on a losing streak. But, we always look at the 10 and it's like, you're looking for this performance, but it can only be done off the back of the hard work up front. And that's been the biggest difference, is once that platform is laid, it's allowed them time to make better decisions on attack, make better decisions in their kick strategy. So, and I know I'm just going to sound like an old front row here, but I reckon the big fella will back me up. If they don't get the platform, it doesn't matter if Richie or Bodie's at 10. Doesn't even matter if Johnny Wilkinson is at 10. Doesn't matter if Dan Carter's at 10. If you can't get the platform, you can't get across the gain line, can't buy yourself time, you're not going to be in the game.
I hate to say it, and it seems to be, it's a common message that we continue to keep saying on this podcast. The breakdown and being able to win that breakdown battle and physicality and execution around that sets up your whole game. And I know it's boring, but it's kind of where it is, I feel, Jib, at the moment in the international stage. If you don't win your breakdown battle and you don't get the physicality right to be able to put yourselves in positions of the field due to that, you don't win test matches. And that's why I think we've been so inconsistent this year, because some games we've won the breakdown battle and we've played really well, running, kicking decisions and being able to execute that. If we haven't won the breakdown battle and it's been wrong, we've lost test matches. So I completely agree with Jip that if you don't get that right, it's really hard to win test matches against these top tier nations.
So two things on that. One, Dave Rennie's sides always love a breakdown. And two, Colin Betty came out this week and said brutality is the main focus for us.
Yeah, and we know that's coming. Like, there's no bones, but Australia haven't always got it right this season. And when they've lost the breakdown and they've lost the collision. And I don't think that'll be this week because of what's on the line, how much they have to prove, and obviously the build-up and the focus that they'll be bringing to this test match. But I always do temper that with the breakdown accuracy is key, that you just do it from a physical point of view, not from a point of view to make a statement, because if you get it wrong, you may spend 10 in the bin, but also you could put yourself and your team under more pressure by giving away penalties for sort of fighting that end battle. So it's just making sure that, there's fire in the belly, but you've got to have that calmness upstairs to make sure that you're really accurate, and it's almost you've got to be able to one bullet, one kill. Like, you can't have 2 or 3 goes at it, because then that stuffs your whole other system. So there is sometimes people can get over animated and they'll make more errors than not by trying to hurt people, rather than going, okay, I've just got to get this done, this is my job for this moment, and then move on to the next.
So when you look at the way that the Aussies approach it in comparison to the way the Argentinians approached it, things seem to be a bit tighter. The Aussies like to play a wider game, don't they? So how will the All Blacks change the way that they approach the breakdown, their kicking strategy, and all of those kind of things, Bryn, in this game against Australia, considering the alternate style to Argentina?
I think the defensive pressure that the All Blacks have done in this series has been really great, and I think it's tackle choice first and foremost. You've got to be able to get a dominant tackle, and so no doubt Scott McLeod will be talking around tackle selection and being able to get that right, and then being able to get a defensive line that's set, and then being able to put outside pressure. Because I think if the Australians can find moments in the game to get quick ball, like you look at Nick White, and when he can influence the game around Rovers with Corin Betty, I think their work rate that they've got with their wingers are some of the best in the world. But you can only get that with quick ball. So we talked around breakdown, and if they can get that, Nick White can be able to get out and snipe both ways, and he's had success against the All Blacks when they've been able to do that. But I think their face play shape as well, they actually do ask a lot of questions, and the Irish have some similar players around their block players and being able to ask questions with animation of short ball out the back, Rovers with Corin Betty and co, to be able to try and influence and trying to ask questions of that defense of the All Blacks. But I've been really impressed with the All Blacks. I think the only time this year where they didn't get that right was when we played the Irish, because the physicality of the breakdown that the Irish got, the quick ball that Jamison Gibson Park was able to get, really put us under pressure. And so I don't think we've been tested like that, but I think the Australians have the ability, because they've got a lot more animation than you like to think, with especially the South Africans, and the Argentinians didn't get that right, and probably the second test match and the weather probably took that away from them. So like we said, if they can win the breakdown, the Australians, in times, they can really ask questions of the All Blacks. And I think for the Australians, they've got to be able to take the opportunities. I think if they don't get that execution right, and the Argentinians made a lot of handling errors and forced mistakes, then it's going to be really tough for them. So they've got to take the opportunities when they have them, especially when they get down into that All Black zone.
Oh, I definitely agree. Like, I think it's more of that. The Australian attack is more of that bodies in motion. There's a lot of attacking threats that are moving, and that's when it's key for the All Blacks defence. The first thing I'd say is for us, obviously win the dominant tackles, so it's not fast ruck, but getting our spacing right. So being more spacing connect rather than body on body, and making sure that you sort of don't get too tight around the ruck, because sometimes if the ball's quick or there's a lot of moving parts around the ruck, forwards can tighten up, and one pass can beat about 6 defenders, which puts these 2 or 3 defenders under a lot of pressure. So it's making sure that spacing on the ruck is really consistent, so that one pass beats 3, because that's normally what's expected. But if it's any more than that 3, you're asking a lot of your defence, and it'll have to be that passive defence. So that spacing around the ruck to allow the middies and the outsides to do their job will be crucial. And then I think both sides will have seen from a kick strategy point of view, when each have struggled, they've lost the kick battle, they've lost that aerial battle. Australia massively against Argentina when they got dusted up there, and the All Blacks, obviously against the Springboks. And so I think there will be a balance between all-out attack, but also that feeling out, because I think it leads to the full 80-minute performance, having the ability to put those attacking kicks in, having the ability to put those contestables in early, and they should be tested, both sides, because of what they've seen previously.
Sorry, Ross, I just think the contestable games of the Australians are going to be really, really important. A lot of teams during this rugby championship have been kicking down the middle of the field, which is great. If you get good go-forward ball, kick it to the middle of the field or long, and the attacking team from that counter-attack has to come and attack from the 22. But I think the contestable games of whoever's at 10 and with Nick White have to be on the money. I think if they don't get that right and they give the All Blacks counter-attack abilities and just give them easy pill, then I think the ability of the skill set of the All Blacks and being able to you use the likes of Will Jordan, Rico with space at hand is going to be too much for them. So the execution of the kicking game and contestables, especially of Nick White and whoever's selected at 10, has to be on the money. You have to think that they can take a lot of confidence in looking at the South Africans when they get that right and they get that contestable game right. It's a 50-50 in the air, or it's on the edge of the sideline, and then the All Blacks have to attack from the sideline against pretty much a 14-man or 13-man wall. So I think the kicking game is going to be really important, and the execution and the no man's land of the 40s is going to be important. But just in general, I think it's going to be pivotal for the Australians to get a result in their kicking game.
Now, it's been an inconsistent rugby championship. Well, it's been consistent. Everyone's been inconsistent. Everyone's 2 wins, 2 losses from 4 games. Which version of the Wallabies and which version of the All Blacks are you expecting to turn up this weekend?
I think both will stand up. I think it'll be a real close contest. And as Bryn said, opportunities have just got to be taken. I don't think they'll be presented as much as I suppose either side had felt in that last 2 Test series. Obviously, when Aussie won against the Springboks, they got off to a hot start and held on. The All Blacks coming off a 50. I just don't see it being like that. There's just too much on the line. Rugby championship is one thing, but the Bledisloe Cup is so important to that All Blacks side. But those Aussies want it just as bad. So I think we'll see the very best.
I'm actually probably going to go from the performance that we've seen against the Argentinians. I just think I'm probably backing the All Blacks to go up another level, I think. they're going to take a lot of confidence from that. And again, this is just, could probably come sit here next Monday and thinking like you're an idiot, Bryn, but I think it's going to be a dominant performance from the All Blacks. I think with the Bledisloe with on the line and how much it means to that group and knowing that they can take confidence. And they've shown growth around the areas that we wanted to see against Ireland. The kicking game, and then also the ability to be able to attack through the middle with the likes of Tokiaho and Savia. You'd like to think Hoskins will be in and around there, but I like there's been a slight improvement every single take away the losses that we've had, but I've seen an improvement in our game. So I actually think the All Blacks will be maybe 2 tries better than the Australians, but it'll be tight. I think the first 50, 60 minutes it'll be hard, but then I think in the last 20 minutes I think we're going to go over the top of them. So I'm calling it now.
I think as well as improvements is that Maul D improvement. That's been massive, and even from when they did it really well against Springboks, they got penalised a lot for that leg lift. They've even made adjustments out of that, and they've got better and better. But the Wallabies have scored a lot of Maul tries, so it's no easy feat. So they're going to have to be on there as well. So I suppose all the areas that we are seeing improvement in are going to be crucial to this victory.
What about the other game? What about South Africa versus Argentina? Again, 2 teams who've been incredibly inconsistent. 1 week world beaters, next week barely there.
Yeah, and a little bit of squad movement with guys having to go to contracts and so forth. So it's a tough one, but you'd have to think the Springboks go on as favourites for it. I know they're away from home, but They've probably been more consistent. When RG are on, they're on, but when they're off, they're really off. Whereas the Springboks have been there or thereabouts. That when they've won, they've won, but when they've lost, they haven't been too far off. They probably just haven't got their contestable kicking game has obviously not been there, or they've kicked too long to give that time. So I think they'll be really assured of themselves in that performance that got them the result in Australia, and I think they've just got to go out and replicate that.
And in Argentina, Bryn?
Well, I think the Argentinians will be really disappointed with how they perform against the All Blacks, because the defensive pressure that they've been able to put on, take away from that last Test match has been really, really high. We've talked around David Kidwell and his involvement around the physicality and I guess the tackle technique and tackle selection and choice, and the defensive pressure that they've put on a lot of teams. But I think what let them down last time was the execution. They made far too many unforced errors, and I know probably the weather dictated that a lot, but you'd like to think Checker and co will be able to try and change that and say, look, the execution isn't going to be that bad, because when they're on and they've got the ability to be able to have a low unforced error rate, they put teams under a lot of pressure. We've shown they can kick really well. In that first Test match against the All Blacks, they kicked really well with Karates and being able to have Botrino as well in there as well, and they kicked really, really well. But when they played the Australians in Argentina, they attacked very, very well, very similar with animation and being able to use their outside forwards and outside backs. They really penetrated and asked a lot of questions of that Australian defence. So I think for them, it's been able to defend well, and when they do kick, they kick very well. But I think it was more so the unforced errors, and they'd like to tidy that up and make it more of a lower count, because I think they'll put the South African team under pressure. It's pretty much two physical teams. It's going to be a very physical encounter. Two big teams have been able to win that breakdown battle. So, I think the unforced error rate is probably one area that Czech will be hoping to fix against the South Africans.
They do love to feed off defence, though. If you look at all their successful results, it's been on the back of being dominating in defence. And I just don't know if they're going to get opportunities like they got against the All Blacks and Wallabies, because those teams like to attack and they like to keep coming with ball in hand. They're not going to go away there. Whereas the Springboks, it's not that they don't like to, but they'll only pull trigger if it's really on, and if it's not on, they go to their kicking game. So that sort of emotive energy, I just don't know how they're going to find. I know being at home is massive, but I just don't think the Springboks are going to give them that much, especially in their own half.
Now back home, we had the FPC final, Farah Cup. Canterbury, again, 41-14, another title for Canterbury. They're so consistent in making these finals. And Kendra Cox-Edge, arguably New Zealand's greatest female rugby player, 100th game, wins a title in the year she's going to retire. It's a fairy tale. It
certainly is. I think she put up a post that she believes in fairy tales, so yeah, she definitely got one. And she was a massive factor in getting the result. But man, their ruck ball was so quick early. That first 40 took a lot of energy out of both teams' tanks, and it, obviously really close there. But it was probably the discipline that cost Auckland in the end. They picked up, through Kendra's boot, 3 after 3 after 3, and they didn't really touch the ball until sort of late in the piece, and they got a try. But other than that, they were sort of stuck down their end, and Canterbury, just picking up those threes, and then the pressure came on, and their scrum started to really, really struggle, and through that they managed to put that pressure on. Kendra scored a good try off the back of that as well. So, the set piece probably failed them, and their discipline in the second 40.
There's some wheels in those old legs of hers, going down the sideline there, Bryn.
Oh, there was. She still got it. She could still keep playing, to be honest. Yeah, she's doing well at her age, but. Yeah, I think it was a great send-off for both of those stalwarts of Canterbury rugby. They've done so much, and especially Kendra. You'd have to say that she is the best female women's player that's ever come through this country. You've got Anna Richards as well, who's obviously been talked about as well. Jensen as well, who obviously played for Hawke's Bay and was able to go out a winner against Otago. But look, I thought Auckland did very well to try and stay in that game. They got punched in the nose the first 4 or 5 minutes with having 2 tries from Canterbury, and going into 13-7 at half time, and they would have been thinking, we're lucky not to be down more points. But yeah, the discipline, 2 quick penalties just after half time, and then the period of the 50th to 60th minute, Canterbury were able to go over the top and score 3 tries to kind of, I guess, you have that result, and I guess win that game and not have it a really close encounter that you won in the back end of a game. But it was a great send-off. You look at kind of the respect that Kendra had when she went off, being able to have the last 13 minutes where she went off, a standing ovation, because she's done so much for New Zealand rugby. And I know definitely down in Canterbury as well. Originally being from Taranaki, but you'd have to think that, might be a statue out Rugby Park with Kendra's name on it, because she's been awesome, and a great send-off for her and those girls as well. And Canterbury dominating again and winning a championship.
Have to knock down the Bryn Hall statue.
Yeah. Or they just put them next to each other.
Won't be one there, mate.
Well,
It's half Hall, half Drummond, and then Kendra.
well, it wouldn't be accurate, with the beauty that is on his chin right now. It's not quite the same. We'd have to go down there and stick some wool in there.
Nah, just shave it off. Pretend it's never there.
Yeah, and the stand's named after her. The full works. It was a really nice occasion like that.
And she's got a lot to still do. Like her game. I think it's probably the most explosive. And Bryn, you'll be able to talk to this, but the way she cleared the base, the way she made decisions to when to snipe and just get rid of the ball. The game was really played off 9. A lot of their success around that breakdown and got him behind those defence. And that's going to be crucial for the Black Ferns leading into this World Cup. I just think she is hitting peak form. She looks like she's just so invigorated coming out of that Black Ferns environment, and definitely has been given the licence to run a hell of a lot more. And you saw that on the weekend, and I'm really excited to see her get another send-off at the end of the year.
Yeah, she was buzzing. She was absolutely buzzing at the end there. More good footy back in New Zealand through the weekend. Obviously, we had the NPC as well. Good win for Counties there over Manawatu. Put that in. I was glad I wasn't here last week when Harbour got the one up. I wasn't forced to wear that tight jersey again. None of that stuff.
Well, we could always bring it out.
It would be even tighter. There's no doubt about that. Game of the weekend for you?
Probably Auckland Waikato. I was really interested in that, and I don't know, Waikato have just been chipping away. Like, they haven't had any outlandish big victories, but they've got the results they needed, and their back three with Sinkinson, Coombs Fabling and Cook Savage was just ridiculous on the night. I'd say it's the best game he's ever played. And Damien moving into that 10 spot, it just seems to be a good fix. I'm really excited to see where they can take this, and if they can go back to back.
What do you think, Bryn? You look at how Canterbury are going, you look at how Waikato are going. Who do you see as the team in better form and probably most likely favourites?
Oh, you'd have to think Canterbury. Obviously that little slip up against Taranaki, but Canterbury, I think, probably came at a good time for Northland as well. They've obviously had a really good start to the season, and it was probably a good litmus test to be able to see where they were at. But Canterbury are looking very strong, and probably you look at the other side of the draw. You look at Waikato, Hawke's Bay, Wellington, and Bay of Plenty. 4 teams that are pretty there or thereabouts in that kind of that side of the table. And you even look at probably the other side, it's Northland, Harbour, and Tasman that are probably going out for that kind of 3rd and 4th spot, because it's pretty tight in that. Canterbury are pretty much what are they? They're 10 points ahead of Auckland. So you'd have to say Canterbury would definitely be the favourites, but Waikato are there or thereabouts. They're just finding ways to win, and especially a game against Auckland, which is always a great game for those two provinces. They're doing it there or thereabouts. So, whenever you've got Damien McKenzie, steering the ship around in the back end of the competition, where you think they'll make the semi-finals or quarter-final stages, having someone of that calibre is going to be really important. But I was really impressed, lastly, with Bay of Plenty against North Harbour. I think they started really well, and the set piece that they did with the line-out maul, North Harbour couldn't stop a line-out maul to save themselves on the weekend, unfortunately. So. But they're tracking along nicely as well with Caleb Trask and Triple T being able to, I guess, have good performances for them. So it's pretty tight, but Canterbury at the moment will be my form team and at this stage of the competition.
I reckon Northland rested a few players, and they were in that game for 50, 55 minutes. I think they're a dark horse. Like, if they could somehow, if they get on a roll here and they squeak into getting, sort of home quarter home semi sort of stuff, they've got a lot of belief in that side, and I think they have to be considered serious consideration. I think it's guaranteed they'll make quarterfinals, but if they can keep pushing these next 2 or 3 weeks and get a home semi potentially, man, what that would do for that community. You've seen already how much it means for them to play in front of their home crowd. I think there's plenty of water to go under the bridge just yet before we see a clear sort of 1-2 out the front.
Who's your player on the rise this week?
Oh, Cook Savage. Wow, man, it was some performance. And I don't know, like I've noticed him before, but not like that. He was massive. So him for me.
It's a great name.
Oh yeah. It's
got star written all over it, that name.
He certainly is savage on his body, because he took some death line carries. He scored a beauty off one of them, but he is not afraid of the collision. And just his skill set, his work off the ball to set up McCurran's try, just a lot to like. Really secure under the high ball. I just like that back three at the moment. The balance of that Waikato back three is, they're just speedsters. They've got raw gas, and that's hard to defend.
For you, Bryn?
I actually went Noah Hotham from Tasman.
Yeah.
I think he's been great for Tasman, and what a pickup for the Crusaders. A young fella coming through. He's played really well at the under-20s level and has had some really big hype around him with being at Hamilton and down at the Highlanders previously. But look, I think he had a tough hit about a fortnight ago, played against Canterbury and had a pretty tough night against a pretty dominant Canterbury game, but has really come back and was so influential and being able to. His sniping game is so good around close to the line and just in general, his offload game, and was really impressed with his try-saving tackle and his ability to be able to be getting breakdown penalties as well. So look, he's another halfback coming through really good. You've got Xavier Rowan, Cortez Ratima, Waikato, you've got Falau Whakatawa, you've got Red, obviously. You've got the experienced guys of TJ Perinara and Brad Weber, but I've been really impressed with Noah Hotham, and I thought he probably had his best game for Tasman against Taranaki on the weekend.
And I think as coaches watching, and this is probably why he's already signed to the Crusaders, is to have that performance against Canterbury and then bounce back as quick as he has. He's a young man, and have that composure and ability to reset himself, plan his week and go again and perform, I think shows a lot about, one, his sort of already early development and professionalism, but it'll hold him in good stead because we know the pressure valve only gets more intense as you move up the ranks.
Well, plenty of NPC to come. In fact, it's a cracking week of rugby this week. Wednesday night, Waikato Southland. Thursday night, the All Blacks versus the Wallabies. Friday, Taranaki Manawatu. Counties Manukau versus Canterbury. Auckland, Tasman, Hawke's Bay, Wellington, Bay of Plenty, Southland, Otago, Waikato, Northland, North Harbour, and the Wallabies versus...
I reckon that's the game of the round, Northland, North Harbour.
Northland, North Harbour.
Up in Whangarei. North Harbour need a win.
Yeah.
And that is not going to be an easy trip. So to round out the weekend with that, it's an absolute doozy.
That's a bus trip up, isn't it?
Are you doing that game, Joe?
I'm doing that game, yeah.
Are you doing that game?
Yeah, pretty excited about it. It's, like I've just said, Northland I think are a smoky for the title, and North Harbour haven't had the best run with coming off that storm week and losing to Bay of Plenty, so they've got a bit of work to do to make those quarters.
That's an old school trip, Bryn, is it? The North Harbour guys jump in the bus 2 or 3 hours on their way up in the morning of the game?
Nah, I reckon they'll go the night before.
No, you go the day before.
You'll go the night before.
Right.
And then straight bus trip home.
Yeah.
Commiserating or celebrating, one of the two.
Straight off the field
hopefully a few beers
into the bus.
Oh no, Northland still run an old school aftermatch, so you go upstairs and show face.
Yeah.
And then head off.
Yeah. Nice.
Stop off it.
Yeah.
Where would we stay?
Well, depends on the result.
A few stops on the way down, maybe the Puhoi pub or somewhere like that.
There's plenty of options.
Yeah, Puhoi, that's fun.
Yeah,
Puhoi pub. That's right. Yeah, definitely going there for a beer. See the result.
Don't know how busy it'd be on a Sunday night, but you never know.
Sunday. Sorry.
Geez, if North Harbour are there, then there's no problem at all, is it?
Tony Woodcock might be there.
Yeah.
He can welcome them.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, guys, well, there's a big weekend of footy to watch. Well, thank you very much to Bryn Hall. Thank you very much, James Parsons. And that was another Aotearoa Rugby Pod for this week. Enjoy your footy this weekend. Enjoy the show on Sky, on YouTube, whether you listen to it on Audio Pod. Thank you very much for joining us. Mā te wā.